Hello, I'm Brian Jenkins, Vice President of Business Development for Ceres, here with Alan Rohrbach, the President and Lead Analyst of the Capital Markets Advisory, Rohr International. Alan, as a veteran market advisor, what do you say to new traders or even those with some experience about how to be more effective?
You know, Brian, I'm so glad you started with that question. Too many of these analyst and portfolio manager interviews start with some lengthy background, and if you want to know more about me, you just have to go to rohrinternational.com or rohr-blog.com and go look at the About Us section. There's plenty there. And indeed, there is some very concise, single-pointed advice I would give either new traders or people who've reached a certain amount of expertise but know they've got further to go before they get into the really effective long-term market participant category. And that is, be very thorough on one hand, and yet don't get so bogged down in your analysis that you cannot move timely. You must be ready to go forward. And in fact, one of the best, most interesting perspectives on that was brought to me by another trader in our relatively early days, someone who was philosophically inclined, and he asked me, well, are you incorporating any Eastern philosophy into your market analysis? And I went, not so much. And he said, well, you're missing something then, because at the very least you should be looking at the ancient Chinese philosophical treatise, the I Ching. And I went, okay. And I happen to have my Richard Wilhelm English interpretation of the I Ching here. And this gentleman also pointed me to one particular trigram that's most useful from a trading perspective. There were several, but this I found the most striking for a good reason. It's the trigram Kaan. And Kaan is substantially representative of water, the abysmal. You go, well, that's fairly calm and flat, but it's also deep and dangerous, and it speaks of the abyss in which water might flow. And the nature of water is to be significantly penetrating into all the little nooks and crannies, and that represents the kind of people who would seek research on a very in-depth basis and understand the fine points. And on the other hand, it points out that when water fills any given vessel or fills an area geographically, it's then ready to move on and overflow and plunge into the next level, which is the moving forward. So the thing I would suggest that is most interesting here, though, most interesting, is how this relates to trading, because it relates to danger, but not random danger, like if a tornado or a hurricane should happen to come along once in a while to where you happen to be. But this is great. You'll excuse me for reading, but I want to make sure I get it exactly right. Through repetition of danger, we grow accustomed to it. What could be more relevant for traders than to know, which they all, I presume, understand, you're entering into something that has an element of danger, and through repeated practice at it, you become accustomed and you become acclimated to it. And then, of course, it's about being able to act, and I love this further part of the translation. In danger, all that counts is doing what is necessary. Thoroughness. And there's your look at being thorough, but then that you carry out all that needs to be done in order to move forward, and therefore not perish by tarrying in the danger. For me, that's a wonderful metaphor for the flow of the markets, and we're all standing in it and need to understand how we want to act and be cautionary, be observant, certainly understand the dimensions of what you're dealing with. When the time is right, you must be ready to move forward, to enter new potentials or to manage risk in positions you're already in. I don't think it gets much better than that as far as broader contextual advice for new traders or those who are trying to accelerate their initial trading involvement.